Okay, good morning. We are continuing Hilchos Chatzitzah, and we're doing Kuf Tzadichet, reading in the Shulchan Aruch. I will do my best to explain it. Some of the halachas of Chatzitzah are a little confusing because there's a little overlap between what's Mikar Din, what's Chumrah, and then, of course, there are different opinions on parts of the halacha and how you define what's makpid and what's not makpid, what's makeup and not makeup, and so many, like what's for Lanoi and not, and what somebody wants there to not be there. So it is a little bit of a confusing issue. Obviously, whenever a woman goes to the mikveh, we all know that in general she removes everything and you avoid all shailas. Whenever there is, anyway, but if there's areas when needed, of course, ask your Rav. Here, just to point out, we're just going to recap a little bit on some of the things we pointed out, or to explain better. Regarding Chatzitzah, backtrack just in general about Chatzitzah, if it wasn't clear. If most people, it bothers them even once in a while and they want to remove it, so then we hold that that's a Chatzitzah. Like if a woman removes her rings or jewelry when she kneads dough, for example. If this woman wants to remove it sometimes, or most women wants to remove it most times, then it's considered a chatzitza, even though most of the time it's not a problem. But because sometimes they want to remove it, that makes it called makbid. Doesn't have to be makbid every day. It's just makbid when you're once in a while doing something. That's considered a chatzitza. Obviously, anything that's bothering the woman that she would want to have it removed from her, we all call that a chatzitza. We generally hold if she wants to remove it so it doesn't get ruined, that's called a chatzitza. Again, a chatzitza when it's touching the skin and water doesn't get underneath it. If it's loose, so then usually mi'ikar adin, we would say it's okay. But we're talking about chatzitza where it's against the skin, preventing the water touching. Also, let's say she needs to remove it sometimes for, let's say it's for a mitzvah. There's a reason why she needs to remove it sometimes. It doesn't really bother her, but she needs to remove it sometimes. For example, sometimes it needs to be removed to do something. So then, be'etzem, it doesn't bother her. So in these areas, it is a little bit of a machloket. But let's say, for example, by tefillin, I don't know if it's a machloket. It could be everybody agrees. Let's say tefillin at night is not the time to wear tefillin. So therefore, even during the day, if a man needs to go to the mikveh, he has to remove his tefillin. Because it's often, but the point is it's an example of a chatzitza. Because sometimes he has to remove it, but it's not the zman of tefillin. He doesn't mind wearing tefillin, but he has to remove it because of that issue. So then it becomes a chatzitza. So let's say a woman, I'm not holding of all the sugyas of gynecology, but let's say she needs to have something in the osel makom in order, let's say, to prevent, miscarriage issues or whatever the issue is. But it's something that she needs to remove in order to do a bedika. Just whether, I'm sure there's real ramifications, she needs to remove it just to do the bedika in order to check for blood. So really, it doesn't bother her, and she wants it to be there, but it's in the way for doing the bedika. So then many will say that is a problem. If it's beit hastarim all the way inside, well, it depends. If it's deep enough, so then it's not an issue. Okay, the question is how deep does it need to be? If it's beit hastarim, so that's also a question mark, because even beit hastarim, places that are covered up, water needs to be able to reach there. That's beit hastarim, like where water can reach there, like the mouth or the armpit. It's not usually visible because it's usually the way you walk. It's usually, or the way you close your mouth, it's usually covered. You can't see in there. So those are called beit hastarim. So there, water needs to be able. Ra'ui lebias mayim. It has to be where water could get there. A little bit different is balua, when it's totally inside your body. So that's also not a problem. But anyways, in some of these cases, really just ask your Rav, but it might need, if it's removable and you remove it sometimes, so then it creates a problem. Or sometimes, let's say this is the least of an issue, but it's still machlokas. Let's say there is something there by the, I don't know exactly how deep they put it, but in order, there's something in there, let's say to prevent miscarriages or whatever it is, and you never need to remove it to check or whatever. But once every couple years, she has a baby. And in order for the baby to leave, she has to remove it. So on that, there's a machloket if that's called a chatzitza or not. There's be'etzim, she never removes it, never wants to remove it, but she needs the baby to pass. So does that create a chatzitza? So there, that's going to be the least machmer of a situation. No, an IUD is completely inside. Is inside completely. That's a different sugya. That's balua, and it's some of the things we just mentioned. We mentioned about braids. So we mentioned Friday. So we know braids are an issue lechatchila, but b'diavad it's not really a chatzitza. We assume the water gets through. But so what do we do Friday night? So we mentioned, especially in Eretz Yisrael, when everyone is Jewish, you let her go in the water. And you just remove any gumi, any like a rubber band or anything else on the outside that can be removed. That's not an issue of Hilchos Shabbos. But I also realize, though, it's common in Chutz La'aretz that the minhag is they have the goy remove it. A goy remove the braids for her. So that's obviously just good to know if that's possible. Okay, we spoke about hair. We spoke about hair that's stuck together through, let's say, because of sweat. And so it's stuck together and there's sweat, little particles there. So that can create a chatzitza if she is makpid. So we spoke about that already, but what I do want to point out is because of that topic, because of that issue, major issue, it's important that it's soaked and cleaned and combed. So therefore, the hair is not stuck together. We're not talking about knots, right, which could also be a problem, but we're talking just the hair getting stuck together. That can be a chatzitza because she doesn't want it to be stuck together with pieces of sweat. So therefore, she's makpid. So therefore, there is the minhag by Sfardim generally around the world. The general minhag, I heard Moroccans less, but in general, the minhag by kimat all the Sfardim is that the woman, she shaves with the blade, she removes all the hair before. And this way, there's no hair to be a chatzitza issue. So that is the minhag, and that's what, in general, the women are supposed to do. And again, if a kala doesn't want to, there's questions on can you break the minhag? Can you, again, this is not midin, this is only mitzad minhag in order to prevent the chashash, like a gzera type of thing. And it's, or can they do they need to do hataras nadarim? Can they do hataras nadarim? So that's a whole sugya, not for now. This is only the pubic hair, but also makom, correct. Not the hair of the head. That's clear. And there is a minhag by Hasidim by some Hasidim to shave their head, the head. That's not also makom, that's the head. And the reasoning for that is again also chashashos of chatzitza, a similar idea. Or when they dunk in the water in the mikvah, maybe all the hair will not be underneath the water. So that's the source for that. Let's see, what else did we speak about? We spoke a little bit about the eyes. So I just want to point out that generally eye drops, right, it's a liquid, never going to be a problem. But if it's the cream that is a real problem, right? Sometimes, if I remember correctly, an eye doctor once told me, if you have an infection in the stomach, if you have an infection in the eye, so a liquid is usually the best way, best medication for it. If it's in the skin, then a cream will penetrate better. So again, I don't know, but that was his advice. If you're going to choose between liquid or a cream medication for the eye, it depends if the infection's in the skin or in the eyeball. Anyway, but the cream is what's going to create a much bigger problem for chatzitza, especially if it's on the outside. So that must be removed. If it's on the outside and probably on the inside, that must be removed. Again, it's the poskim, it's unclear nowadays. We saw this, we'll see it again. There's certain materials like mud we're going to have more liquids coming up. It's unclear exactly the nature and when it's considered, thick and sticky, and when it's considered liquidy, that it's not a problem. So that's just an important thing. Fine. We mentioned, I know we spoke about eyes, so I have a couple quick things to mention. Glass eyes, so some are mako, right? Synthetic, what's it called? Whatever, glass eyes. So she wants it there for beauty. Now, and generally speaking, the best, and this is an important principle, the best type of anti-chatzitza for something not to be a chatzitza is when the woman wants it there for beauty. If it's there just to strengthen her for a fuah, whatever, like kedei lechizuk you might see written, or for a fuah, for health reasonings, so then that's often a problem. It's often a chatzitza. But if it's for lanoi, mi'ikar adin, we say it's not a chatzitza. So she wants it there, lanoi. Whenever she's wearing it, it's for lanoi. It shouldn't be a chatzitza. So that's why many are mekel. Some say that the water actually does get underneath it. There's a little bit of airspace for water to get through, so it's not a problem. And some consider it a beit hastarim. And therefore, even if water doesn't get through, it's able to get through, because it's not super tight against the skin. And therefore, it is beit hastarim, and water doesn't actually have to get there. Only has to be able to, ra'ui, possible. Okay? But some are machmer lechatchila. The Ghassan Shevet HaLevi says it's machmer lechatchila if she removes it when she bathes. Again, it depends if it's there all the time, or it depends. Again, I'm not an expert on hygiene, so I'm not quite sure what's normally done. But anyways, if she removes it for bathing, so that makes it a little bit worse, more problematic. Ask your Rav. Similar concept is contact lenses. Some say, again, it's mutter because she wants it there, it's for vision. And there's a little bit of, it's put in there with water. The eyeballs always have moisture, water over them, and therefore, it's not a real chatzitza. There's a chibur of mayim. But some, again, many are machmer. I think women are usually told to remove their contact lenses. And Bediyevet, I guess, ask a shaila. And they're a little bit worse because contact lenses, women, they remove them every single day when they go to sleep. Again, it might make a difference what type of contacts, right? That might also depend on if it's the hard or the soft. Okay. We mentioned makeup again. So if it's lanoi, it's not a problem. And when it's put inside the eyeball, we said it's okay because either it basically dissolves away with the tears, which is why we said even if it's on the outside and she blinks a lot, it's because the tears wash them away. So anyway, so in the eyeballs, we assume it's not a problem because either it's done for beauty or it's done, even if it's for a fuah, it washes away. And it's not a chatzitza. If it's on the outside, so then it can be a chatzitza, either because the case is it's for a fuah and she really doesn't want this extra kechol or extra guk around her eyes. Also, even if it's makeup, it's often a problem because obviously when she's wearing it and walking on the street, she wants it. But then as soon as she gets into the water, makeup can often run and get a little smudged and messed up. So as soon as she goes in the water, now she doesn't want it anymore because it's ugly. It's smudged around. So therefore, by definition, it can be considered a real chatzitza. And I'll just point out, we again basically had this a little bit. The post can point out, and generally speaking, if it's going to be painful for her to remove, again, it really depends what the situation is. If it's going to be painful for her to remove, or it's dangerous for her to remove, in general, we're going to assume it's not a chatzitza because she wants it there, and whatever the situation is. Each case legufo, but basically, usually it's not a problem. You leave it. Right? We don't have her remove scabs that she's going to bleed and be painful. We mentioned that. Also, is interesting to point out if a woman has acne or pimples, she should not scrape them in order to pop them or to remove the layer on top. Again, pus on the inside, we mentioned, is 100% not an issue. but also it can cause scarring. And the halacha is, generally speaking, we do not want her to suffer. We do not want to cause any scarring, and women should not do anything that's going to cause scarring as well. Right. So we did have chatatin. So we said there it's mutter. You just bathe, soak it, and therefore, and that's really solves most of the issues, most of the real problems. If you soak, it's okay, especially if you comb the hair. Generally speaking, it's going to be fine. We're going to get to a few more details inside. Let's read inside a little bit. But those are the basic principles. Tet vav hadyo ve'achala ve'hadvash ve'hadam sraf te'ina. So ink, milk, honey. Uh, Maybe it means date honey or bee honey, blood, and the liquid, the sap from the figs, srafa tut, from I don't know, some kind of berries, srafa charuv, uh, um, boxers, carrots. There you go. Sraf hashikma, from anyways all the other kinds of figs, yeveshim that are dried. They are chotzitzim if they're lach. Sorry, yeveshim chotzitzim. If it's dry, the liquid, so it's thicker and stickier, so then it's a chatzitza. If it's lachim, if it's very moist and runny, then it's not a chatzitza. Sha'ar kol asrafim afilu lachim chotzitzim. But all other kinds of saps, even if they're liquidy, they are chotzitz. Again, nowadays we're not really sure what's the difference, and we're just machmer for all of them. Okay. And let's go on. Ted Zayin, dam shenisrach babasar afilu lach chotzitz. So this is dam. Oh, I forget the exact translation of nisrach. Um, any runny, fresh bleeding is not a chatzitza, right? But it's so it's because it's attached. If it's thick, dried out blood, so that's for sure going to be a problem. I'm assuming nisrach is dried and crusted. Yeah, right. So that's so it's attached. It's either very thick or and just in a process of drying and congealing or scab. So those you just rinse with hot water, soak a little bit, and it'll come right off. That's necessary to remove. Okay, Yud Zayin. Seva shitzova tanashim al paneim v'yadeim. So now, what about dyeing that you have on your hands, nails, your face, uh, nail polish? If you have dye on the se'ar roshan, eina chotzitz. So this is all these things are not a chatzitza. It's all done for beauty, and they're depending on what it is. I mean, for hair, it's permanent. I will mention they are. We'll keep reading, but there are the times when it's really a problem. Now, lechatchila, women remove all the nail polish. That's across the board. That's the custom. But mi'ikar adin, if a woman's not removing her nail polish and it looks great, then you let her go to the mikveh so she doesn't go home without going to the mikveh. The bigger problems are, let's say it's in really bad condition and it's chipping and it looks terrible, and as soon as she goes home she's going to want to take it off anyway. So that's when it becomes a shaila. So you should either remove it or repaint, nail polish. Nail polish is not the topic here. Okay, I understand. I understand. So the real topic here is by nail polish has correct. So nail polish with has mamashis is basically the same din because it's lanoi and you want it to be there. However, you're right. The ikr sugya here is more no mamashis or henna dye, like you mentioned. She doesn't like the henna dye. She can't remove it. So any kind of mamashas, anything that doesn't have any mamashas, ink pen, or we're going to see this. The henna, even so, we say try and remove it, but if you can't, it's not a chatzitza. There's no mamashas. That's not a problem. And a painter, even if it actually has some mamashas still stuck on, because it doesn't bother the painter. The painter, this is his business. Everyone knows he's a painter. He might actually want to have paint on his clothing, on his hands, so people know he's a painter, right? It's like advertisement. So anyways, that's Right? Nothing better than word of mouth, or your own self is even better. So that is not considered a chatzitza because you're not makbid, it doesn't bother you. Fine. Haga. V'chein mi shamru to liot shochet. Someone's he's a shochet for a living. Or katsav, or a butcher. V'yadav tamid meluk pachot bedam. Ein achotzet. His hands are always covered in blood. It's not a chatzitza. Sherov b'nei umanot zo eina makpidin. Because you don't go after rov b'nei adam for this issue. You go after rov b'nei your competition or your colleagues, and so therefore it's not a. And so that's the custom is you always walk around like that. It doesn't bother you. So then it's not a chatzitza. It's not called makbid. Okay. Yorchet. So what? So shetachat etzipor, and this just means dirt that's below the nails, uh, fingernails or nails. Shelo keneged abasar that go beyond. That's beyond the skin, the toe, or the finger. Chotzeitz. It is a definite chatzitza, but keneged habasar ena chotzeitz. But if it's uh, where the skin is, it's underneath. If you're not makbid, it's not a chotzetz. Ubatzek shetachat etzipor afilu keneged abasar chotzetz. But if it's dough that's underneath your finger, where the underneath your nail, where the finger still is, right? There's a little area where it's dirt can get stuck in there, but it's really keneged the finger. There's still your finger is bolet, it sticks out from there. There's a little window, a little area where it can be. So if it's dough, it bothers you. Again, this also depends on the times. If dirt underneath the fingers nails bothers you or not, or bothers most people. I think nowadays we're probably more machmer than they were. Okay. A few keneged abasar chotzetz. So anywhere underneath the fingernail, even if it's where there is a skin, there is a flesh. There you go. It is chotzetz. Ve'ezu shelo keneged abasar. What do you call shelo keneged? Not opposite the flesh, where it's even more chamor, more of a chatzitza. Zeh shehatzipor and odef ala basar. Right? You hold out your finger. You look wherever the fingernail extends beyond the flesh, the skin. So then that's considered even worse. That's okay. Alafi. Right. So the minhag is women are supposed to cut their nails short anyway, so there's much less of an issue. What? Yeah, I'll be Kabbalah and just right, or just whatever. Men also should not have nails go beyond the skin. Right. I think we may have probably learned that in the way beginning of Aruch. So that's okay. But here, okay. Well, if it's hard to know exactly where do you draw the line. So before you go to the mikveh, you cut the nails to this all the way anyway. אם נפוחה כל כך שאין עתיד שתחת הציפורן, נראה אין החוצץ. Now, if it's all swollen over there, and you can't get to it, and you can't see it, so then it's not a chatzitza. Okay. If women don't want to cut their nails, again, mi'ikar din, it works as long as it's clean.